What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunched Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Ishmael Solis. Ishmael Solis states that no way Terence Crawford can beat Errol Spence, said Ishmael Solis. Ishmael Solis, of course, is the trainer of Dennis Ugas. You know, he's also trained guys like Erislandy Lara, and others. And Solis believes that the version of Spence, which is 28-0 with 22 KOs, would be too much for the WBO 147-pound champion, which is 38-0 with 29 KOs. He'll be too much to handle. The unified champion Spence is hoping to set up an undisputed championship fight with Crawford before he leaves the weight class to move up to 154, but it remains to be seen whether the two of them will be able to negotiate the fight. Solis also said that night was tough, it was hard, really hard, said Dennis Ugas trainer Ishmael Solis about the fight with Errol Spence. From the corner, I could see Spence's punch, but it was hard. It was tough. Ugas showed that when you hit Spence, you can get hurt. But the problem is, who can hit him? But if Spence fights the same way he did against Ugas, no way Crawford can beat Spence. Yeah, said Solis. When asked about Spence could still beat Crawford, even with his speed and counterpunching ability, the version of Spence in the last fight, it's the #1 welterweight and the #1 pound for pound, definitely. He said, one thing is sure, styles make fights. We cannot say it's an easy fight for Spence against Crawford. No. I think #1 Spence, #2 Crawford, and if the fight happens, it will be a great fight for boxing fans. Anyway, let me counterpunch. I think that Ishmael Solis became a fan overnight. And this easily happens. It happens all the time, okay? You make a believer out of the trainer that you fought against, okay? Ishmael Solis was, of course, on the opposite side on Team Ugas when he was training Ugas against Spence. And what happens a lot of times when your fighter gets beaten and you really don't have a pony in the show, your pony in the show automatically becomes the person that beat your fighter. You know, like, for example, that's just like Luis Ortiz saying that, hey, I don't see anybody beating Deontay Wilder. Or I think Deontay Wilder would beat Anthony Joshua. Things like that, because it's easy to fathom that, especially when that fighter has beaten you. And if you have a mindset that you're on that elite level, or you think there's no one is better than you besides the person that beat you, then you become that person that, look, nobody can beat this guy because that guy beat me. That's what it comes down to. And Ishmael Solis, I think, is going down that same path, and he's going down that same thought process. I think what people don't realize is what Dennis Ugas did. Speaking of Dennis Ugas, he was able to hurt Spence but didn't capitalize on it. It was a weird type situation. Okay, it was real. It was too weird. Like, it was almost like he hit Spence with a 1-2. Spence fell into the ropes, and then he kind of just stood there to wait, I guess, for Spence to respond, which was dumb. When you hit someone like that and he goes into the ropes, that's your opportunity, because Errol Spence was wide open. I mean, he was wide open for a barrage of other possible punches. And I just thought it was strange. It was like, then he just stood there and kind of stood in this stance of like, this is where I'm supposed to be, almost like he's standing on a mark for a damn motion picture or something. And I know, because I do that type of work. It's almost like he wasn't meant to do what he just did. If that makes any sense, okay? So if you go back and you look at it, right, it looks like Ugas hit Spence and was like, oh shit, did I supposed to do that right at that point? Nonetheless, after that, he didn't capitalize on it. Spence came back, beat the crap out of him, and that was that. Now, Solis vouching for Spence, it's common because he's been in the ring with him. You know, the question you ask yourself is this: what if Terence Crawford beat up Ugas or stopped Ugas? Would they still have that same thought process? Would he still believe that Spence could beat Terence Crawford if he never been in there with Spence, but been in there with Crawford like he was in there with Spence against his fighter Ugas? That's the question you ask yourself, okay? And but the bandwagon, it's easy to convince trainers, especially having elite fighters like Ugas and Spence and things like that, because it's just easier to fathom when your fighter gets beaten, especially by one of the best. But my counterpunch on this is Spence may be one of the best at welterweight, but is he one of the best in the world? Is he the best welterweight? That's the question you ask yourself, and I do believe that he is, because I think he's pound for pound number one, and I think he will prove it if the fight ever happens, that he is pound for pound number one, and we will see one hell of a fight. That's what I will agree with Ismael Solis on. That fight will be massive. That fight will have all the sparks, the fireworks, and everything else in between. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think about Ismael Solis saying that Terence Crawford won't be a match for Errol Spence. Tell me what you think. Please subscribe, and you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.